So there is a difference between the dot notation and the bracket notation. So in JavaScript, we see that we can return back and we can assign those values. So if we do myJSON.car1 or myJSON bracket, quote, car1, and assign a value to it, they're both the same. It's two different ways of assigning values in JavaScript. And this is important to note because with JSON, you can have spaces for the key values, whereas with JavaScript, you can't. So if you were to do car space 1, it wouldn't work in this type of output, but it would work within this output where we're doing the bracket notation. So keep that in mind, and I am going to be showing you some examples of that coming up. There's also arrays. So we saw that we had created an array, an object array, so we had car, and we had blue and black, and now if we log out cars, you can see what it's going to look like. So let's clear our console, and we're going to create a brand new variable, call it cars. And you can do this as well within your browser to try that out. So we've got a car, and we have one blue and one black. And we're going to use an array because we have two values here that we want to store in the array. Because they're both cars, and this way, if we break it apart into blue and black, let me show you how this looks. So if we do cars, we see that we've got that same key pair values. So we've got the key and the value, but the value this time it's an array. And within the array, we can see that there's two objects. So if we have two cars, this is actually a better way to represent that information. And additionally, we can add even more content into our JSON object. So let's try that out now as well. So let's try out the second example. So var and my JSON. And let's, this time, we'll just create it here within the console. So we've got car1. And we're going to have additional information. So remember with JSON, we can have an object as the value. And if we set the object as a value, then we always have to separate it out with those colons. But this is going to give us even more flexibility in that data. So we've got our car1, and now let's do car2. So that's the key value. And then we've got an object that we're placing within there. And then within that object, we need to keep the format the same, or we should keep the format the same, that it's easier to loop through and to parse through that information. So now if I go to my JSON, we can see that I've got two objects in there. I've got car1 and car2, and they've got some properties. And then you can add additional details as well now, because now that you've got it set up within this type of format, your car1 can have a color, and it can also have a model as well. And that's the nice thing about JSON, because you can really build out your JSON object using this type of format. And this also allows for more details. So typically you wouldn't have just car1 and car2, black and blue. You're not really sure what that's referring to. But if we have a key paired value there, if we have a color black, we have color blue, we can also add in a model as well. And keeping in mind that the way that this time it's structured is that we've got an object and car1. So we do have an object here. So if we wanted to add to this, and if we want to set up model, we could really easily update and add even more details into it. So now we see that we've got that one as model, and we should add in a model for the other one too. And that's an important thing to note, that you should have the same type of structure, because as you're parsing through this data, because it's all about the data, you want to be able to return back for car1 a model and a color, car2 a model and a color, and so on. So if you add even more properties, make sure that they're aligning with both of those values. You don't have to, it's still going to work, but it's best practices if you're looping through multiple items. So now if you go into my JSON, you see that you've got the two cars in there, car1 and car2, and they each have properties and values. And if you want to find out more about car1, then you can return back just car1 and the details in regards to car1. So try this out for yourself. Open up your editor or open up your console in your browser and try it out for yourself. Build out a JSON JavaScript object and then add additional details to it. And you'll find that if it's structured within this way, we can add as much detail as we want. So if our details are expanding, all of a sudden we want to get year and so on, we can really easily incorporate this into our JavaScript or our JSON structure. And then we can build that out and make use of that data in a much smarter way. We've established that there is a definite difference between JSON and JavaScript objects. So we know that with JSON, all keys must be quoted, and object literals, so those are the JavaScript objects it's not necessary for. JSON has double quotes, while JavaScript can use single or double, and JavaScript can also include functions, and that's not available in JSON. So basically, whatever data you have is what you're stuck with and what you need to use. So whatever data you have is what you can use. You can't have any more advanced functionality within your JSON, whereas JavaScript, there's a lot more options. So try this out for yourself, and in the next lesson, we're jumping back into the editor, and we're going to be showing you how to use JSON and within JavaScript. So that's coming up.